Hey!
I did it. Hey. Hello.
Woohoo! Excellent.
Buttons and I have a hard relationship. Welcome to our evening book talk. I'm Melissa Peters and this is Samantha Osei. And we're here today to talk about a book that we read for our February book club called, let's see if I can do this, Wrath Becomes Her by Aden Polydoros. Do you want to do an introduction, Samantha?
Sure. I'm Samantha Osei. I am a writer and looking to publish my first book this year. And I have been writing for quite a long time. And as part of that, I love to read books to learn how to better write in general and to see what other genres out there I might be interested in writing about. So that's me, Melissa.
I have published one book called House on Highland Road. It's a cozy horror story. Oh, I've got a kitty. And I'm looking to publish my second in the next few months. And I also love to read. Sorry, there's crystals on my desk, and the cat is trying to play with them. Okay, I'm streaming, dude.
This is called Cats Live.
Now I'm distracted and I don't know where I was.
You like to read also as well?
Yes,
Right.
yeah. I have no genre that I like the most. I kind of read widely. So this was my, you can go away. This month was my pick, and I chose Wrath Becomes Her. Yeah. So what did you think about the book?
Well, so before we came on, we had a little bit of a discussion on what we thought of the book. And overall, it was definitely well written. And you definitely can tell that he's put a lot of effort into creating the story. However, for me, I wasn't drawn into the book, and for I think a couple of reasons. The book has a World War II. It's set in 1943, Lithuania, and it's really about a man who loses his daughter. And when he loses his daughter, he ends up going against Jewish tradition and creating, through Jewish mysticism, a golem that is part his daughter. And that golem, which is essentially kind of a creature made out of clay, and he creates that in order to then have vengeance on the people that killed her. So, like, the premise is a stunning premise. I really thought it would be something I'd really enjoy. Um, but overall, like, anytime that you're reading something, the subject matter where it's really intense and can be really emotional, can be really hard to work through because of what it is, I have to be in a very particular type of mindset. And I don't think I was this February. For whatever reason, it wasn't pulling me in like normal for that kind of genre and that kind of story. So because of that, I would say I would give it a 3-star overall, but I do think it was more about where I was when I was reading it versus much of other things. Now we'll get into other things, but that's kind of overall, what I was thinking.
Yeah.
What about yourself?
Thanks for giving the synopsis. I probably should have read the back.
It's all good.
I thought it was well written. I did struggle with it too, in part because I feel like I've been World War II fiction out right now. Read a lot of it recently, and you're right, February is a crappy month to read World War II fiction because it's already the most depressing month of the year.
I didn't say that. I think that might be a personal opinion.
Yeah, it is, but I don't like February.
Okay.
It's the shortest month, but it feels like the longest. But at least the
It's
sun's coming out.
cold and all kinds of things.
Yeah.
At least where we are, it's cold. So,
Yeah.
understood.
On a cold snap, a very short cold snap right now. But yeah. I thought it was well written. Like he put the story together well, but I did struggle a little bit with getting invested in it, and that might have been from where I was coming from too. Um, yeah. What was your favorite part? Do you think?
Um, well, you know what? Actually, I think when Ezra, who is the father, is creating the golem, um, and there's like this scene of her kind of learning and absorbing some of the things going on in the room. There's also this aspect where she's waiting to get like her mouth being carved. So like these little scenes where she's like getting more expression, more ability to express herself and that kind of stuff with the mouth. No, I just thought the way it was written was really well done. Um, and I don't know, it just kind of it gave me a lot of hope for what the story was going to be about. And in reality, a lot of it was about expression, right? Expressing anger and love and etc. Now that I randomly think about that, kind of goes hand in hand with creating that mouth. Um, but I did like that part. Like it that did stand out to me. Was there anything that stood out to you?
Well, I just realized we could be sharing the cover of the book. I'm really good at this, guys.
Hey, this is why we practice.
I think like she had emotions, but they weren't really hers at all until she had something to lose. And when we were talking, I said I felt like she didn't have all that much to lose. But as I'm thinking about it some more, um, she had gained some friendships and created her own emotional bonds with people. So I don't want to give spoilers, but closer to the end, she's potentially going to lose someone. And I don't know how I feel about the ending. I don't want to give anything away, so I won't go into it. But um, I like when she's faced with the loss of something. Like that's kind of the biggest moment for her. Obviously, it's the end of the book, it's the climax, but
Right.
Yeah, that's probably
Mm-hmm.
the part I enjoyed the most.
And what she's willing to do in order to try and save that aspect.
Mm-hmm. Although I don't really know how she accomplished it, but um, that's okay. It's fiction. Um, would you read another book by this author?
So again, we were talking about this, and I would really like to read what happened before this book started. Um, to me, one of the challenges was I felt that even though the premise of coming from the golem's point of view is excellent, I didn't feel that was pulled off very well because I don't think she was the one that had the story. I really felt that who I wanted to hear about was Ezra because not only had he lost his child, but he purposely went against his very strong religious beliefs to create the golem. And I would have really liked to hear that story of what, of course losing a child is very difficult and it would drive people to do certain things, but usually that kind of dies down. But in order for Ezra to have done this, it would have, I don't know, probably took several months to do it. So, like, there is this just intense emotion that he was feeling. And he's like, I don't care if I go against tradition or if, you know, whatever. I'm doing is against everything. This is more important than my beliefs. And considering what the whole reason why the Jewish nation was being pursued by the Nazi regime, like that also is kind of an interesting, almost oxymoron. Like maybe not oxymoron, that's probably not the right word, but it's a very interesting aspect of the whole story. And we don't get to see that. So I would love to have like this sense of an origin story.
Yeah, I agree. I feel like Ezra would have made a very compelling character. Like I wish we got at least part of the book from his perspective because he was the one who was emotionally driven to violate like his beliefs. And personally, I think if somebody has strong beliefs that they've been brought up in and they believe are right and true, it would take a lot to make you
Mm-hmm.
do like a 180 on them. So that would have been really interesting. And the story starts when he doesn't have anything to lose. He's lost everything. So
Right.
had he had something to lose, had it started a little earlier, or had we got that origin story in the first, if there's a first book that was about his loss, I think that would have been really cool.
Mm-hmm.
I would read. I would try something again from this author. I don't, even if it's not in this world.
Right.
The writing was strong. It was good.
Yeah.
Do you expect a series from this?
I don't, but uh, I mean, it probably could, based on the end. It probably could. Um, but I don't know what do you think?
I don't think so. Like I don't expect a series from it. There's the potential to, but I feel like it's kind of I feel like the story resolved, um, which is kind of refreshing because uh, you and I are both in some of the same writing groups, and the common advice is write in series because that's how you engage readers and keep them with you longer. And I
Right.
am writing a series, like I'm writing a cozy horror series right now. They're all standalones to a degree, but they play into each other. Um, but it's refreshing to pick up a book that's a standalone and know you don't have a bigger commitment than this one book.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. Interestingly enough, I prefer standalones. So I am not much of a series reader. Like I have started mini series and I have not got past like book two. So and that's you know no particular reason that I know of, but I'll still start the series and go, oh yeah, that's a good series from what I've read.
I
So
really like series, depending on when I come in. I like a series if I can come in when there's like one or two books.
mhm,
The commitment's low. And if I really like those characters, then I have that choice to stay with them and read more about them.
right,
And if I don't like them, then I leave alone. And I will still pick up like book one in a series and read it, even if the series is long. But I might not continue. Like if it's 13 books and I enjoyed book one, but it wasn't amazing, I won't continue on.
mhm.
Uh, I like both, depending on the characters and how.
Yeah, just it takes a lot of time. Like I don't know if I want to put that much commitment into one storyline. So that's why I'm glad that the Wheel of Time is being done in a mini series. But
Froze a little. I apologize.
yeah,
That's my internet.
it's all good. All good. Um, but anyway, I guess moving on still with this book, kind of got off on a tangent there, but um, yeah, series. I would agree. I don't think that this one is going to play into a series at all.
You might have to carry the show. You're the only person. You have. Well, I don't know. I don't know how it works. I don't know if you can carry the show if I'm not there. um, we do have one viewer, so that might be your special guest.
It might be my special guest.
Welcome to whoever is watching. You can lurk if you
Yes.
like. It's fine.
Yes, if you want to make a comment, please do. Let us know if you've read this book or if you're just here joining to watch me make a fool out of myself.
Watch my
Whichever.
internet.
Yeah, watch the internet lag.
Sorry.
Next question. Do you want me to
Next
start
question.
asking you?
What are
Or
your thoughts on the book structure and the flow of events?
okay, so book structure and flow of events. I thought it flowed pretty well. I don't know. At one point, I thought it was the whole idea of the Wizard of Oz came to me. It was like the golem started in one place, kind of like Dorothy, and then everywhere she went, she picked up another person. And she, it's very similar to like a hero's journey with the band of fellows, right? But for some reason, it really came to me as like the yellow brick road. She was trying to find the wizard, right? Which is Ezra. So I guess it kind of goes along that line. But so it made sense the whole way. I was able to follow it. It didn't have too many like flashbacks. It did have some, so I could see someone maybe getting lost a little bit in between those. But overall, I thought those were very well done.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I agree. They didn't feel like flashbacks particularly. What did I think about the book structure? I thought it flowed well. At some points, I was out walking because I bought the physical book, the hard copy even, um, but then I didn't have time to read it, so I was listening to it. I rented it on Libby, and I was listening to it. And I took a big long walk on Sunday, and I kept getting distracted by dogs and different nice houses that I saw. So at times I'd be like, "What just happened?" And I'd have to go back because so it was kind of felt jumpy to me, but I think that was just because I was walking around listening to an audiobook.
Right.
Um,
Well, an audio is very different. I know when I listen, especially to fiction books on audio, I have a much more difficult time following. Um, and I don't know if that's just because I'm so used to reading things, or like sometimes they'll have like a paragraph break or a section break, and it tells you, oh, you're going into like a different point of view or a different time frame, stuff like that, which is not always translated in the audio.
you're right.
So that could be part of it as well.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I've at times like when they arrived at the city and then they went to the camp, um, that kind of felt jarring to me. I'm like, when did they get here?
Right.
But I remember like there was transitional scenes. I just didn't register them very well. So.
Right. And again, it could also be because, as we said, we were not really in the mindset of a World War II read, which with the heavy subject, it definitely, you need to be present
Yes,
in order
yeah.
to get a lot of it. So
There's a few scenes where Vera, the Gollum's the character from Lord of the Rings, I think. I don't know how you say it. I think you say Gollum. Gollum? I don't know.
I say Gollum, but tomato, right?
Okay.
Like, I think it's okay, whichever way you say it.
Now I'm confused. Um, but there's one point where she encounters death for like the first time, and that was pretty striking. I'm also reading Five Little Indians on the side, which is another super heavy book for February, and the two kind of like have combined a little bit now because they're both dealing with like super depressing subject matter.
Right.
Not that this book was depressing; it just is set in a depressing time.
Well, it's not like it was uplifting either. So, I mean, anytime you have something set in World War II and you're talking about, things that are based on real life
Yeah.
killings and war. It's just you're not going to have a positive time reading it.
Mhm.
As far as uplifting,
Yeah.
right? You're not going
Good
to be
point.
laughing a lot. So definitely.
Um, our next question is, did the plot serve the story well? But I think we kind of covered that in our answers already. Do you want to add
Yes.
to that?
Yeah, definitely. I think it served the story quite well, for sure. And
Uh,
they follow along. I think I answered all of those all in one.
yeah, I think we're good. Was there any plot twist that surprised you? There was a plot twist for me that I wasn't expecting, but I don't want to say anything about it because I'll give away the story.
Yes, I'll give away part of it that was for me without saying um what they found in the drop of supplies.
Mm-hmm.
That surprised me, and that's where I was like, "Oh, I had no idea."
That's
So,
where the surprise started for me, but it
okay,
continued on until her emotional
right,
uh, upheaval. So,
right.
vagueness for the win.
Yeah, vagueness for the win. No spoilers in this book talk.
Try not to. Was there a character that stood out to you more than others?
um, I was thinking about this earlier, and I really liked Miriam. So, and the reason why is because I knew exactly what she wanted, something I could relate to. It was family. It was, she wasn't trying to go for vengeance. She was like, I want to find my brother and I want to be with them.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and I felt her emotional aspect a lot more than I did Vera, who's the golem. Um, excuse me. I have a cough, so if I have to mute myself, I might. Hold on.
Okay, I'll talk as well. I think I would have had to say Miriam was my favorite character. She stood out to me the most as well, because she had hopes and dreams, and she had a desire to find her brother, but she was also willing to sacrifice her hopes and dreams in order to live her reality, which was pretty cool. And then also Ezra. I didn't love him. I felt he was kind of almost washed out old man because he sacrificed his views for, or he sacrificed his religion and his life views for this desperate fight for vengeance. But he was compelling because he was driven by his emotions. So, and that
Yeah,
always makes the character compelling.
yeah. I did like Oren, who is basically someone that Vera mistakes as Ezra and ends up helping her in the end. So I think there's an interesting story with him as well, but there's not enough to kind of really go by. But
His life would have made an interesting like short story.
yes, it's a very good reader magnet if the author wants to take our advice on that. He's probably like, yeah, I'm not going to watch this.
Yeah, no, I don't think so. He's traditionally published, I think.
Yeah,
Or he doesn't need a reader magnet like we do.
I'm sure. I'm sure.
Um, did you relate to or feel more connected to one character over the other?
Um,
Kind of ties
again,
into one question.
kind of a plot. Excuse me. Kind of like what I said earlier was Miriam is more who I related to. Um, just because her focus was family and it wasn't vengeance. And that's something not that I haven't had things done that I would want some kind of retribution, but I've never been in a situation where it stayed so long. Um, and thankfully, I've never been in that kind of situation. So it's not something that I can relate to,
Mm-hmm.
um, for, to that kind of extent. So that's why, like, something that drives someone like family, like if I lost my brother, I would go looking for my brother, right? Like that would be definitely something I could relate to. Or any of my family members, extended or otherwise.
Mm-hmm.
Especially in that situation, and not knowing and having an idea that they're in a particular city, I would go and try and find them too.
Yeah, and something they said while they were while Vera was trying to figure out the emotional aspect with these humans that she's going to the city with, um, somebody mentions that a loved one could be there that day and then gone the next, and you wouldn't know what happened to them. And
Hmm.
I mean, I guess that's war, but it hadn't really clicked with me before that. That even in the city, I mean, it should have. I've read so many books and watched so
Right,
many movies, but it never really occurred that somebody could just disappear and you wouldn't know that the soldiers took them, or like you wouldn't know what happened to them. They would just disappear,
right.
and that makes total sense. But I can't imagine living like that.
Yeah. And that's just not something we're going to be able to relate to, you know.
Hopefully, we never have to.
Yes, exactly. So we're gonna knock on every piece of wood nearby.
Yeah.
So, mhm.
Um, did you think there was a character that could become another main character in a different story?
We keep, I think, answering the next questions.
All right.
Um, yeah, Oren, Ezra, obviously, I think would be good. Um,
What's her name? That
the
the old lady. I want to say
the
I don't remember her
Gol
name. Was she an old lady?
Golfiza,
Golzifa?
Golsifa. Yeah, I think that's it. Yeah, she ends up being someone that hides a lot of, I don't know, a lot, but hides people for the resistance, essentially. That's
Did you
not,
ever watch Castle in the Sky?
no.
It's like an anime. Um, there is this old lady. I think she has pink hair. I don't know. But Golzifa reminded me of her. Like
Mm,
she's got a hook nose and she has two like grown sons that she just orders around. She's like, go after them, boys. Um, and I pictured Golziva like that. Like she was like this old like wide pantaloons.
right,
She looked like an anime character to me.
right.
And I
Fun.
don't know. It was pretty entertaining, I thought. I think I'll skip the next character question because we've definitely answered all of those.
Mhm.
And I feel like setting we've kind of really spoken to as well. Maybe we'll skip the first one about how it supported the story because World War II it all supported the story. Unless you want to talk to that.
Right. Well, and I mean, at this time too, so the setting is in Lithuania, but it's also during the winter time, which is, I think, a very important aspect because there's a lot of the setting plays essentially an extra character in here because you have the extreme cold and how it causes so much pain just being out in the weather. So you have to be mindful of, what you're wearing and everything. And so I do think that the author did utilize the setting very well. I mean, this would be a very different book if it was set in the summertime.
True. And I kind of just pounded that home on my walk on Sunday because it was +2, so it's actually quite warm for February. But I only had a hoodie on and my leggings, and I didn't think to bring gloves or anything because I'm like, it's +2, it's nice out. But then I went for a walk out in the open, and I was out for 2 hours. And by the time I got home, I was just shaking, and like 4 out of my 10 toes are all blistered, and one of them was actually so blistered it was bleeding. Um, and I got frostbite on my hands earlier this winter, so my hands are like slightly frostbitten and swollen.
And let's for the audience that might come to see this,
Yeah.
+2 is Celsius because
Oh,
she's in Canada, right? So if you're coming from a different country like the US, know that it's not the
That's
same
cold.
plus two. Yeah.
That's cold, not temperate.
Yeah.
But yeah, it just pounded the story home because I got home and I was like, I feel like I've just been like out on the plains, freezing my butt off. Um, and then, did the setting seem real to you? Could you imagine or feel the setting as it was described?
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, especially I'm sure after you were going on that walk.
Yeah.
Um, but I don't know, anything that I read that has winter in it, it it's a lot easier for me to feel the cold and whatnot. Probably because since I grew up in Colorado, and it can get very cold there. I mean, maybe not colder than other places, but in general for the United States, it gets fairly cold during the winter time. So it's like, oh yeah, it's like when that one blizzard we had, and I had to go and unbury the car or something. Like I can relate to it. I don't live in the tropics, so it's not where I have no reference point um, of what that would feel like. So
I'm gonna live in the tropics one day.
maybe there's a possibility there,
Bugs love me though, so maybe I'll come back to Canada.
right?
And we already answered the last question. Would you want to read more books set in this world? I think we said yeah.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, it's important to read books like this to help us understand, the emotions and the perspective of people that went through um, that kind of, horror. Um, and to make sure that we are able to do the things that we need to in order to stop from those things happening again. So, it's 1940s, World War II. I think that's a very important world setting that, we need to continue to read in.
Yeah, I agree. I was just thinking that we're not quite, but we're almost to that 100-year mark. And by almost, I mean like a couple decades. Hold on.
It was like, let's wait another 19 years.
2 decades, okay?
Okay, 2 decades, yeah. I'll still be around.
That's pretty crazy.
Yeah, it is. I mean, and that's really not that long ago. When you think about it, I still think it's like the 1990s because that's when I grew up, right? But it's really not that long ago. So I think that probably wraps up our actual talk on this particular book. I guess, I guess to kind of tie it up, my suggestion for those that are into World War II books or into a different type of perspective that maybe you're not used to when reading that subject matter, this might be a good book for you to pick up and read. Um, if it's, you know, you have to be in the mood though, which, you have to be willing to get into that be present with the subject matter. So, and I would say that with anything around any kind of war or some of the atrocities that happens in real life. So, but if you're in that place and you're looking for something else slightly different than a typical World War II book, this definitely would be something you might want to try.
And it was kind of nice to have, it wasn't like a World War II book. It wasn't in the trenches, soldiers fight.
Right.
It was more civilian than that. And it had that fantasy twist with the golem.
Right.
And I have to say, I'm glad that golems aren't real because that could have really changed the course of World War II.
World War II. Yes. Either way, like, I don't know. That would,
Better, it could have been for the worse. I don't know.
yeah, better or worse.
They might be real. I don't know if you believe in Jewish mysticism, But I'm glad that they weren't involved in the war.
Right. That we're aware of.
That we're aware of. Yeah.
So, um, I do. So before we kind of end, I do want to talk about what our next read is. So
It is not dark at all, I don't think. It might
I
be.
do know.
I don't think it is.
I kind of went the exact opposite of absurd to
Small
absurdity.
pop after dark chocolate.
Right. Exactly. So, so what I picked, and so we decided to definitely look at indie authors for the next 2 months, or at least Melissa picked out an indie author, and I was like, oh, why don't I do that too? So I went ahead and picked. It's called "That Time I Got Drunk and Saved a Demon," which is the best title ever. So, and it is by Kimberly Lemming. So I found this book on Indie Next, which is a publication done by the American Booksellers Association. And it's got some really good, a lot of things about it being really funny, which after this is probably good timing. So,
I'm
and
excited to
we
look.
will be having this, I will be hosting this book talk on March 26th. So if you want to be part of that, we'd love to have you come join us, put comments in, ask questions, give us your thoughts on what you thought of it that once you've read it. So it's March 26th, same time. It's going to be 8 p.m. Eastern. So it'll be daylight time then. So it will be um, 6 Saskatchewan, so Central Standard Time,
Yeah. Um,
because
we
you don't do
could
daylight
change
time.
the time. We could change the time. We could discuss it maybe after if you want, because 9 o'clock might be too late for you.
Well, we were still starting at 8. That, so I was thinking we're still starting at 8. So we'll look
I'll
at
do
that.
the
It's
math because
either
I don't
going
know.
to start at
I always
8.
show up late when there's a time change.
So we'll either start at 8 Eastern or 9 Eastern. We'll figure it out and we'll
Let's go
put
to
that
8.
up on our we'll put that
Whatever
up
that
on
is in Saskatchewan, we'll figure that out.
yeah, we'll figure it out. Either way, we'll be on March 26th. So and I think that's it. That's a wrap for this. Yeah, any
All right.
closing remarks?
No, thank you to anyone who comes to watch with us after. And if you'd like to leave a comment, if you've read the book and you'd like to leave your thoughts on it as well, feel free to do that. And we'll see you later.
All right. We'll see you next Tuesday for our productivity sprints.
All right. Good night.
All right.